Hello, everyone, and welcome back to what is already our 8th session of Big Data Days 2022. Today, I have the pleasure to be joined by Mr. Vukosi Sambo, who is an authority within the field of value-driven perspectives towards big data. Mr. Vukosi is going to be joining us today for the first time and will be presenting from South Africa. He's an experienced executive and renowned keynote speaker with an extensive experience in healthcare, financial services, FMCG, and market research. He is currently the GM and executive head at Data Solutions and Insights at MedScheme, which is an Afrocentric group, a leading South African insurer with 3.77 million lives under administration. So that's quite a lot of data to deal with. Vukosi's extensive background also includes studies at Oxford University, the Executive Leadership Program, a postgraduate diploma in artificial intelligence at the University of Texas, and a postgraduate in cloud computing from the University in Texas as well. Vukosi is an expert when it comes towards machine learning, big data, and a very gifted conference speaker. So I really look forward to having you with us today. And today, Mr. Vukosi is going to be talking about the value-driven perspective to big data. And we're going to be looking about combinatorics and permutations, which is two of my favorite topics. So I look forward to hearing and picking your brain on this. Welcome, Mr. Vukosi. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jean. So I will jump straight to it. Thank you, everyone. I've been listening to a couple of the sessions, so I think it does help my session in some of the areas where I won't necessarily go into detail. So as per the introduction, I come from a company called MedScheme, which is a subsidiary of the Afrocentric group. We are, by market share, the largest administrator of health risk management and medical aid solutions in the South African context. But we do operate in other 14 Southern African companies with almost 3.8 million lives. And our services range from medical aid administration, health risk management solutions, and also pharmaceutical solutions from a script farm and a medicine delivery perspective. We do also offer primary health insurance solutions, obviously given the dynamics of our macroeconomic landscape in the South African context, with quite a sizable chunk of our employee base being in the lower income earning category. So this slide basically was just to create a sense of what our organization looks like in terms of scale and in terms of the services that we provide. And I think it will set a scene later on as I start unpacking this interesting topic around the value part of the big data. So basically what really underpinned this presentation and personally my interest that's really propelled me into a journey of taking a slightly different approach to how we look at our big data strategy at MedScheme and at the Afrocentric group was really the story behind the simplicity of the Lego concept. And basically, I was reading a book and some few articles about Lego, and what the Lego Statician basically said is if you've got 6 8x2 Lego blocks, you are basically have almost 1 billion, or depending on which kind of like formula you're looking at, almost 1 billion combinations that you can build from only 6 8x2 Lego blocks. And that was quite interesting, and you'll hear me saying, depending on what calculation you're looking at, I will talk a little bit about that. And that also speaks to some of the organizational aspects that most of you or everyone else operating in this in the data space will may have come to appreciate. But in essence, from a healthcare perspective and just generally from a big data perspective holistically, is that we are generating about 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every day. And that's huge amounts of data. You know, the first time I came across this, I was like, quintillion, what kind of a number is that? How many digits does it even have? And I'm sure, like, yeah, almost all of you can comprehend the accelerated or the exponential growth in the amount of data that we're generating every day. And I think the healthcare space is one of the areas that are being immensely disrupted by this emerging trend, given the IoT implications of wearables, sensors, and so forth, and how that has really helped sort of digitize or set most of the organization on their course to digitize their healthcare provision and really move even from a reactive healthcare to even a more proactive and what most will even refer to as a well care. But all of this has come with its baggage called big data. And I think with that amount of data that we're generating at such high level of frequency or velocity as one of the big V's of data, you're clearly starting to pick up that even the shelf life is shrinking. This is while noting that obviously with cloud, the cost of storage is fairly reasonable or fairly cheap. But I think in terms of really the viability of the data, we are starting to see most of the decisions being highly dependent on more recent data, and now people are starting to apply data into decision making and draw insights from it. And I think this phenomenon basically is driving a significant convergence between data and technology. And what really this means basically is that you have had a lot of V's, some talk 3 V's, some 4 V's, some is 5, some is 6. And I don't want to dwell too much into that. With my name being Vukosi, I think at this rate, I'm going to add my name there as one of the V's, one of the good days. So basically, I want to zone in into one key V for me. I mean, it doesn't mean that the other V's are less important, but it's the value one. And I think for me, the reason being quite straightforward. I think data in its raw form, we all know, is pretty much useless. It just ends up being a storage cost, run a risk of data breaches, privacy, and all the things that you need to put around to protect and manage your data. And if you're going to really do all of that without really realizing any value or benefit from it, then it quite becomes pointless. And I think value for me is where the data inherits its much spoken about asset nature of how of what data really is. And we hear a lot about data is an asset, data monetization. So really value over the last few months has been elevated to the center of how we think about data. And I mean, some organizations, depending on maturity, are doing a fairly okay job on the information side and starting to mature that to knowledge and insights. But obviously, as you really take it one notch up and really try to understand how you can really generate optimal value and really create revenue streams, mature your business model in its entirety, that's where you really play at that wisdom state. And that is why, for me, I think the value part of big data is central to our strategy, because our data and what we're trying to do with it is seeks to support and enhance our business strategy and also help digitally transform our business and find new revenue opportunities or even opportunities to enhance our product and service offering for our customers. So that's why I chose specifically this topic. But obviously, the other part of the topic speaks to combinatorics and permutations. So just to take one step back and take us back to a bit of a stats 101 class. Basically, permutation is how you arrange an items in a particular order. And it might be that you've got n items and you're trying to select a k or r number from that end, but you need them ordered in a particular manner. Whereas with combination, the order really doesn't matter. It's just all about how you choose a particular number from your universe. So basically, if you look at the big number that I have there in red, is that almost billion number. It really speaks more to combinations. And there's an interesting paper called on the entropy of Lego by Darhas and Ehlers from 2005. And I think basically, depending on your views on on how you can really build a structure that will be able to stand from a vertical and horizontal perspective. That number can shift, but I think the message is quite clear to say with just 6 blocks, there are so many possibilities of the different shapes that you can build with your Lego blocks. And this for me was like a big eye opener. I mean, our data sets are blocks, and I'll speak more about that. But I mean, most of what I'll speak about today also speaks to the combination element of this phenomenon in our organization. And you quickly realize that actually, if you then add the permutation element where over and above building different shapes with six Lego bricks, you could decide to only use 2, to only use 4, to only use 5, to only use 3. And you quickly see that that number just keeps on increasing exponentially and becomes larger and larger the more permutations and combinations you infuse into what you are trying to do. So this is something that I call simple yet unconventional for few reasons. I think for the data practitioners, and I think all of us are here, I think obviously the Lego blocks are known for quality, and I think that's why for most of the blocks that are out there in the shops, you probably pay more for the Lego blocks than any other brand. And I think it speaks to as well the affection that most of us have towards the quality of data that we use to really build insights and analytic solutions for our stakeholders. So I think this example lends itself quite very well into some of the common trending data management discussions, even from a metadata, from governance perspective. I think there's so much we can draw from just the simplicity of how the Lego block has been designed and what it can enable for the user. But the most interesting one from just the value perspective and the usability and its ability to also help drive a data-driven culture in an organization is the simplicity. You know, when we're conceptualizing this topic for today, one of the things that I mentioned is that I've got a 5-year-old, but even from when he was still 3, he could use this block. He probably couldn't build as much of a smart or biggest or best structure as some of you in this call, but the fact that is that it could operate this. And some people can build much more creative structures than others, and that is okay, but the simplicity of its design does make it possible to allow everyone to play and to participate. And that is very, very key in encouraging widespread use of data and analytic solution in the organization. If you are able to really get the simplicity of your solutions to the level of a Lego block and really drive that democratization. So those are some of the characteristics that I really wanted to touch on in this slide that looks like it's talking about something so simple but so rich at the same time in terms of the parallels that you can draw with data management practices and the value imperative of the data that most of you and definitely on our side are sitting on, and what we can start doing to really harness or extract or exploit as much of that to help our decision makers and our organizations. So moving on, you know, I talk about what does this mean for us, and now I'm really gonna delve in more to the med scheme and Afrocentric universe. I mean, on our side, we are in health insurance, and I always say that it's probably the most complex form of insurance out there. I mean, if you take other forms of insurance like your car or even your life insurance, really there aren't many transactions in between. I mean, you take it out today and the next big event is when you do die and someone claims and you don't get to be there to enjoy that money. Anyway, obviously in between there could be, there are a few standard transactions of monthly premiums that you make to the insurance organization. But healthcare is rather quite more different. The claim frequency of velocity is obviously a lot higher. And from our side, what that means with our 3.8 million, almost 3.8 million customers is that we end up generating over 25 million interaction touch points every month, from claim lines to credit control to premium collections to servicing, be it in digital space, in traditional areas such as your call centers and emails and all other sort of platforms. And that's a significant chunk, and I have no doubt that some of you in this call probably have quadruple of that, or even way more, or a number of interactions per month. And annually, obviously, that converts itself. Just apologies for that. For us on a monthly basis,
good to go.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And apologies, everyone. Everything just went off, and I realized my battery was not plugged in. So sincerest apologies. I will try still keep to the time and run much quicker than I was gonna. So basically, really on this slide, what I was really trying to get across in terms of how this translates to the math scheme and Afrocentric world is that it means for us with these touch points, we are generating an average of 6 of them per month per customer. Which, if you remember the previous slide about the almost billion combinations that the Lego block gives you, is that roughly even for our business, we are creating equally those number of possibilities in terms of combination every month for every single customer. And this could even be higher if you really look at the product artifacts, given that we've got a lot of different plans and the demographic elements of our client base. So, I mean, you really do get the message to say every 8 months we have generated 1 billion worth of possibilities of data points for each and every one of our customers. And that for me is the big data, not the 25 million records, not the 300 million records annually, but the billions and trillions of the possibilities that that data really represents. And that is why for me, the biggest or the most important V of the big data is the value one, because actually that really exponentially explodes the numbers that you are looking at over and above what you think you may have sitting in your data store, be it your data lake, in the cloud, on-prem, data warehouse, and everywhere else. But the issue with all of that, and just like with those possibilities of the Lego blocks, is that some of them are gonna have you building a structure that probably doesn't even make sense. You wouldn't even tell if you put it in front of someone what actually you were trying to do. Whereas in some instances, you'll build something that may look like a house, something that may look like a car, and the list goes on. And that then is the very same challenge that organizations are facing. Those billion opportunities per customer a month means absolutely nothing until someone really makes sense of all of them and filter out the junk to really live out what is meaningful and what is insightful and what is knowledge and wisdom and can be applied into a decision-making scenario. And I think that's where then the role of analytics for us come to play, to say, what can you do with the combinations and the permutations of all this data that is giving us so much possibilities? Which of those possibilities should we be making sense of it all? I mean, the previous speaker spoke about supervised and supervised learnings, applying those techniques to start picking the patterns that do tell a story, that do mean something, that do give us an opportunity to cluster certain groups of people together and use that clustering or that set of insightful information to create a new product, to create a new variation, to really kickstart a new value-added services, to support our members a lot better and a lot differently. So the use cases from servicing to product to how we even manage the healthcare itself are endless, and I'm only going to share two of them with you, but just for this to spark a thought to say our analytics is actually embedded or is driven from the good understanding that we are sitting on top of trillions of possibilities and combinations and permutations. The role of our analytics team is to say which ones make sense, which ones can tell a story, which ones give us an opportunity, which ones give us a sense of there's a risk there that we need to really manage and manage differently than any other risk. And which ones, even at an individual level, do we need to understand differently from one customer to the next? And you see in the use case that I speak about, one of the things that we are seeing as a big trend in the healthcare space is this personalized form of healthcare in how you understand someone's wellness. And this approach to big data helps you get there and achieve that much quicker and much better and much more meaningfully, so that your interventions are targeted, they are timely, and they are cost effective. And that for us in the South African context is extremely, extremely critical, given that only 14% of our population in the entire country of over 60 million enjoy private healthcare due to macroeconomic and social factors that are underpinned by high unemployment, high inequality, and just affordability challenges. So any means of using data to enhance access through making sure that the cost of provision of healthcare is optimized as much as possible gives us an opportunity to absorb one extra customer into the system and reduce the burden on the state that is already overburdened and falling over in terms of its ability to provide quality healthcare to the citizens. So there's a big impact into how you look at this and how you can really apply this for even a bigger purpose. And actually that is what is the Afrocentric and med scheme vision and value proposition. So you will quickly see that with all this data that you're connecting and you are from devices, IoT, your own internal operational data stores, you need to have a very well thought out analytics architecture that allows you to filter through in a funnel to arrive at what really matters. But the opportunities are endless. And just to share the first use case with you, colleagues, is to really, that thinking has underpinned what we call the modern health risk manager. And this is moving from where we are trying to manage the burden of a specific kind of condition, be it HIV and AIDS, be it diabetes, be it hypertension, be it pneumonia, whatever the condition may be. And now when you are able to really create that personalized view of the possibilities for each and every member based on the touch points and really stratify their risk, you are able to understand each person's risk individually, and where it makes sense that they share the same risk profile with someone else, from an economies of scale perspective in how we obviously manage that specific program for those specific members that fall into that specific cluster can be grouped. But in some instances, this model allows you to go down as deep and as detailed to the nth person, to the last person. And this doesn't just happen at a health risk and condition level. This also happens at servicing level, where we start understanding preference to that level, so that we even understand beyond the preference that you have given us, but also how you would like to be serviced, the channels, the timing, and in what form and shape, and starting to really create that dynamic service experience that really serve each and everyone at the point of service and the point of care. And this has just been such a powerful model that we have built in the last 2 years in the organization, using this way of thinking about big data. And to give you context, the outcome that this led to for our organization is that it resulted in over 4.5 billion rands worth of saving in terms of healthcare expenditure, because now healthcare expenditure was optimized. We were intervening at the right place with the right level of care to really bring back our members to a place of wellness all the time. And to really translate that 4.5 billion rand in our case is that it translates to over 200 rand a month per member, per customer. And these are customers that are paying on average 1,500 to 2,000 rand monthly premium. So this is over 10% of what they pay as premium that we're able to put back into their hands by applying data to understand their risk and their wellness and their health a lot better through a value-driven thinking when it comes to big data. And this for us really has contributed to the fact that as an organization, even during the pandemic, our membership remained stable, as many people didn't even earn income. Most people lost jobs and are only starting to get back to employment now. But our business in terms of our membership and revenue remained fairly stable, and in certain areas even grew, because they noticed the commitment that we had to really going down to the last cent to really enable access and affordability for them when it comes to healthcare. And it's all thanks to big data, but more than anything else, how we think about big data and really sweating the asset that we have and not just having it for the sake of having it. So this was one of our most successful use cases in how we have applied this value-driven perspective to big data by understanding the combinations of someone's claims patterns and conditions to arrive at what could be something meaningful, engaging with our clinicians to bring about that domain knowledge and doing a lot of testing. And this continues to be an improving model, and it's having a significant impact to our entire population, which are our customers, not just a specific segment of them. So moving to the second one, and I mean, before I move to that, something that applies to the previous use case and even this use case that we have had to really work on quite a lot is really the architectural element of creating this data fabric, so that the speed at which we are able to generate the knowledge, the insights, the wisdom from our data to be able to intervene and make sense of our combinations and our permutations has really been underpinned by the data fabric way of thinking. And I mean, those are just some of the key pillars or components from an architectural perspective of really enabling an efficient data fabric environment that really optimizes your data value chain delivery at any point. And I think this obviously starts from anywhere from data sourcing and ingestion, your hosting environment, the processing, the algorithms, obviously the APIs, the consumption layer, and obviously the data engineering elements from a data transportation perspective. So for almost all our use cases, this has been one of our greatest enablers in being able to really connect from those multiple data sources that I spoke about in that DigiSphere universe of healthcare data that is exploding in our face, the 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every day, to say we strongly believe that key to really being able to harness that optimally and quickly and meaningfully, you do need the enablement of a strong data fabric layer in how you architecture yourself from a data point of view. To the second example or second use case on our side, I mean, part of where we have seen great efficiencies that again we are able to plow back to our customers in terms of affordable healthcare has been where we are eliminating elements of fraud, waste, and abuse in the system or healthcare system. So the fraudulent elements are the elements where obviously people are acting against what is articulated in the rules, in the benefit rules design, and what is deemed to be ethical conduct. From a waste and abuse perspective, I think, however, there is a very big room for big data play from a value perspective that we picked up through applying big data from a value point of view, where we are seeing that some of the elements is that are so deep in insights where waste or a particular step in someone's journey of care could have been eliminated, or some things could have been picked up quicker so that a person is directed to the right provider who's going to service them much quicker, with speed, with less hassle, that results in fewer and less claims on our side, but also contribute meaningfully to better health outcomes, where we obviously also do measure improved outcomes from a health perspective in terms of admissions, in terms of the number of people that end up dying and hospitalizations. So we have seen, again, a huge success here, amounting to over 300 million rand annually for our organization. Again, quite meaningful in terms of the impact that it's having in enhancing access and affordability of healthcare. So these are the two examples. I mean, there are a lot of examples internally in the digital space, in servicing space, but I felt for the purposes of something that we at Afrocentric and personally I'm passionate about, which is transformation of the healthcare industry in our country and in our continent by enhancing access to quality care. These examples were better in terms of them enabling affordability, but maintaining and actually improving the quality of care itself. And earlier on, it's really data, but big data that has value at the center of how it's looked at. And I think really for us, what this has enabled us to do, all of you would know that this is one of the industries that is currently being aggressively disrupted by digitization and following through on most of the banking and financial services sector. It has kind of like raised an imperative or what I call the element of ambidexterity, where we obviously need to coexist between delivering against the now and gearing up ourselves for the future of healthcare and what that looks like, and really moving at pace with how that is unfolding in our different markets and customer segments. And I think for us to have really been able to walk that ambidextrous journey quite successfully, it has meant that we had to be very anchored in our purpose that I really spoke about, the motivation to really enhance the access to quality healthcare and transform really the healthcare landscape in a sustainable way, and making sure that that informs our strategy in terms of how we bring synergies of all our assets and innovate with the customer in the center of it all, and make sure that architecturally our capabilities support that strategy. And obviously the resource in terms of the digital transformation journey and the behavioral integration elements really work in line with those capabilities, and just make sure that the entire management system really is aligned. There's that ubiquitous alignment that enables you to have this self-sustaining system that self-corrects, self-improve, and self-organize using a concept of systems thinking. And really data and measurement really enables this key strategic imperative for organization, and data really is at the heartbeat of what we do. It is one of the 6 pillar strategies for the organization, and we do look at ourselves and can confirm that we do not just talk but walk the talk of being a data-driven organization. So that's where I will end it for today. I hope you found this value perspective to big data, and I know it was not very theoretical. I just wanted to really
thank you so much, Mr. Vukosi. This was a very
practical application based on our journey, and we are still working out this journey with you. Thank you so much.
Tremendous amount of combinations and permutations that you can make with very simple analogy, and how you apply that towards the domain of insurance. So that was very inspiring. We're already running out of time for this session, so I'm going to skip the questions for today. And I would like to thank you for being part of Big Data Days. I hope you had a good experience with planning this and enjoyed the questions and reactions from the audience. Thanks so much for participating in the event, and I hope to see you again on any of our upcoming Big Data events. No worries. Thank you so much.